Throughout the long history of humanity, among countless sages, philosophers, and social reformers, the image of Jesus Christ stands out as a symbol of love, forgiveness, and selfless living. His life was not recorded through magnificent architectural works or military victories, but engraved in the human soul through the way he lived, the way he treated every class of society, and the way he sacrificed himself for others. When we reflect on the way Jesus lived toward humanity, we see not only a religious figure, but also a timeless moral example whose values transcend every era and culture. Jesus was born into poverty. He did not choose a noble family or a life surrounded by comfort and privilege. That humility from the very beginning carried his first message about how to live. A person's true worth is not found in status or wealth, but in love and human dignity. Growing up among ordinary working people, he understood hardship, struggle, and the fragility of human life. This allowed him to deeply empathize with the poor, the sick, and those rejected or marginalized by society. Throughout his ministry, Jesus chose to remain among the people. He traveled from village to village, walking dusty roads, meeting crowds face to face. He did not separate himself from real life. Instead, he entered directly into the places where suffering was greatest. He spoke with tax collectors who were despised, touched lepers whom society avoided, defended women who were condemned, and shared meals with those labeled as sinners. This way of living revealed that he did not see people through prejudice, but through compassion. To him, every human being possessed dignity and was worthy of love. One of the most remarkable aspects of Jesus' way of life was forgiveness. He did not merely teach about forgiving others, he embodied it even in the most painful circumstances. When insulted, he did not respond with hatred. When falsely accused, he did not defend himself through violence. Even while hanging on the cross in unimaginable agony, he prayed for those who harmed him to be forgiven. This was not weakness, but the highest expression of inner strength. Forgiveness, in his example, does not deny justice, rather, it frees the heart from the chains of resentment. Jesus also taught humanity to love unconditionally. He instructed people to love not only those who love them, but even their enemies. This teaching challenges human instinct, which often seeks equal retaliation. Yet he opened a new path where love is not limited by calculated fairness but extended even to those who cause harm. This way of living is difficult, but it has the power to transform society at its core. When hatred is not nurtured, the cycle of violence begins to lose its force. In addition, Jesus lived simply and detached from material wealth. He accumulated no possessions, built no political power, and sought no personal fame. He encouraged people not to be anxious about tomorrow, but to trust and live fully in the present. This message does not promote passivity, rather, it leads to inner freedom, a life not controlled by greed or fear. When a person is no longer dominated by material concerns, they are free to focus on lasting values such as love, justice, and mercy. Another defining feature of Jesus' life was his spirit of service. He taught that whoever wants to be great must become a servant. In a society that valued power and rank, this teaching reversed common expectations. He washed the feet of his disciples, a task normally reserved for the lowest servant. This act symbolized humility and reminded humanity that true leadership is rooted in responsibility and sacrifice. A leader, according to his example, does not dominate but guides through love and example. Jesus also emphasized sincerity and inner transformation. He warned against hypocrisy, against maintaining outward appearances while neglecting inner change. He taught that what truly defiles a person is not external factors, but the evil intentions that arise from the heart. Therefore, his way of living calls each person to self-examination, to purify the soul and cultivate goodness from within. Genuine transformation begins not with imposed rules, but with renewal of the heart. Through parables and simple stories, Jesus communicated profound truths using everyday imagery. He spoke of seeds, shepherds, compassionate fathers, and small coins. In doing so, he demonstrated that truth is not distant from daily life, but present within ordinary experiences. His teaching style reflected his closeness to the people. He did not create barriers between himself and his listeners, but met them where they were in order to lift them higher through understanding. A central element of Jesus' life was his complete trust in God. In every circumstance, whether favorable or challenging, he maintained unwavering faith and surrender. Prayer for him was not ritual alone, but a source of strength. Through this, he taught that spiritual life is not separate from practical life. When a person lifts their heart upward, they can find peace even amid turmoil. Faith does not eliminate suffering, but it gives meaning to suffering and empowers one to endure it. The sacrifice of Jesus on the cross stands as the culmination of his life lived for others. He accepted suffering not out of helplessness, but out of love. His sacrifice expressed the conviction that love is stronger than death and that goodness ultimately triumphs over evil. Though he endured immense pain, his message remained one of hope and life. This event became the foundation of faith for billions, affirming that life does not end in darkness but opens into new light. The way Jesus lived toward humanity did not end 2,000 years ago. It continues to influence ideas about human rights, social justice, and compassion. Countless charitable movements, humanitarian efforts, and social reforms have been inspired by his spirit of love and service. Across cultures and religions, the values of forgiveness, mercy, and unconditional love are still cherished and upheld. When contemplating the life of Jesus, each person is invited to examine their own way of living. Are we willing to open our hearts to others, especially those who differ from us? Can we forgive when we are wounded? Do we place the common good above personal gain? These questions are not limited to believers. They challenge anyone who seeks to build a more humane world. At its core, his way of life is not about ritual, but about the posture of the heart. Ultimately, the life of Jesus is an invitation to return to humanity's most fundamental calling, to love. In a world filled with competition, conflict, and division, his way shines like a gentle yet enduring light. It does not coerce or impose, but quietly touches the conscience. Through humility, service, forgiveness, and sacrificial love, Jesus offered humanity a path filled with hope. This path does not promise ease, but it gives profound meaning to life. And in walking the road of love, humanity discovers its true dignity and lasting peace throughout the long history of humanity. Amid the upheavals of war, power, and ambition, the image of Jesus Christ endures as a symbol of love, forgiveness, and a life wholly devoted to others. His way of living was not built on political authority, force, or domination, but on the quiet yet unshakable strength of compassion. When we look at his life, we see not only a religious figure, but a moral model capable of transforming hearts and societies across every age. Jesus was born into poverty, within a simple working family. He did not enter the world in palaces or among the elite, but among ordinary people. From the very beginning, his life carried a powerful message. A person's worth is not measured by status or wealth, but by inherent dignity and the capacity to love. Growing up in a laboring environment, he understood sweat, hardship, and the daily struggles of human existence. This made him deeply close to the poor, the sick, and those rejected or marginalized by society. Throughout his ministry, Jesus did not remain in one place waiting for people to come to him. He walked dusty roads, traveled from village to village, and met people where they were. He did not choose his companions based on social approval. He spoke with tax collectors who were despised, touched lepers who were avoided, defended women who were condemned, and shared meals with those labeled as sinners. Through these actions, he showed that love does not discriminate and mercy excludes no one. Every person, regardless of their past, is worthy of renewal and respect. One of the most striking features of Jesus' way of life was forgiveness. He taught forgiveness not merely in words, but in practice. When misunderstood, he did not harbor resentment. When opposed, he did not seek revenge. Even in his most painful moment on the cross, he prayed for those who crucified him to be forgiven. Such forgiveness was not a compromise with wrongdoing, but a liberation from the cycle of hatred. Through his example, he taught that only love can end hostility and only compassion can heal the deepest wounds. Jesus also called humanity to unconditional love. He invited people to love their enemies, to pray for those who persecuted them, and to do good to those who caused harm. This teaching rises above natural human instinct, which often seeks retaliation. He revealed a different path, where love is not governed by calculation, but given freely as grace. Though difficult to practice, such love has the power to dissolve barriers and open the door to reconciliation among people. The simplicity of Jesus' life offers another profound lesson. He did not accumulate possessions, build personal power, or seek fame. He lived among the people and encouraged them not to be overly anxious about material needs. His message was not an endorsement of laziness, but an invitation to inner freedom. When freed from greed and fear of scarcity, people can live more generously and peacefully. True wealth lies not in material abundance, but in a heart capable of love and sharing. Service stood at the center of his life. Jesus taught that whoever desires greatness must become a servant, in a society that valued hierarchy and dominance. This teaching was revolutionary. He washed the feet of his disciples, performing a task reserved for the lowest servant. Through this act, he demonstrated that leadership is not about control, but about sacrifice. True authority is exercised not by placing oneself above others, but by lifting others up. Jesus emphasized sincerity and inner transformation. He criticized hypocrisy and warned against focusing on outward appearances while neglecting inner change. He taught that what defiles a person is not external things, but what flows from the heart: evil intentions, jealousy, pride, and selfishness. Therefore, he called each person to self-examination and purification of the heart. Lasting change does not come through external pressure, but through genuine inner renewal. Through parables, Jesus used familiar images such as seeds, shepherds, harvest fields, and compassionate fathers to convey deep spiritual truths. This approach revealed his closeness to daily life. He did not distance himself from ordinary experiences, but revealed divine truth within them. His teaching style reflected a life immersed in humanity. Without barriers or superiority, he came down to where people were in order to lift them up through understanding and compassion. Faith and trust in God were the foundation of Jesus' strength. In moments of solitude, opposition, and impending suffering, he turned to prayer. Through this, he showed that spiritual life sustains active life. When people place their trust in God, they can discover peace even amid adversity. Faith does not remove trials, but it gives them meaning and opens the door to hope. The culmination of his way of life was his sacrifice on the cross. He accepted suffering not because he was powerless, but because he loved humanity. His sacrifice proclaimed that love is stronger than violence and light stronger than darkness. Through his death and the hope of resurrection, a message of hope was offered to the world. Life does not end in despair, but moves toward fullness and renewal. The influence of Jesus' way of living extends far beyond religious boundaries. The values he embodied have shaped ideas of human rights, charity, and social justice. Countless hospitals, schools, and humanitarian movements have been inspired by his spirit of service and compassion. His way of life transcends cultures and centuries, touching humanity's deepest longing for justice and peace. When reflecting on the life of Jesus, each person is invited to examine themselves. Are we willing to forgive when wounded? Can we love without expecting something in return? Do we dare to live humbly in a world that glorifies self-promotion? These questions are not meant to burden, but to guide us toward inner growth. The path he walked was not easy, but it leads to authentic freedom. Ultimately, the way Jesus lived is an invitation to return to humanity's deepest identity, to be created for love and to live in love. In a world marked by competition and division, his life shines like a quiet, enduring light. It does not force anyone to follow, but patiently calls to the heart. Through humility, mercy, service, and sacrificial love, he opened a path of hope for humanity. And whenever a person chooses to walk that path, even through small daily acts such as offering encouragement, extending forgiveness, or sharing quietly with someone in need, they continue the way of life that Jesus began. In those simple acts, love spreads. In those silent sacrifices, the world becomes more compassionate. His way of living is not merely a story of the past, but a living invitation for the present and the future, calling every person to become an instrument of peace, hope, and enduring love within humanity.